Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, our 10 tricks to take your webinars from boring to buzzworthy, and we'll kind of unpack that in a little bit here. My name is Alyssa Peltier. I am a senior manager on our product marketing team here at Cant, and today we're going to have a fireside discussion on how to reimagine your webinars in an effort to make them more engaging so that your audience can actually take in the messages that you're trying to communicate. Along the way, we're going to be dropping in tips. We have a total of 10 in them that we'll be bringing to your programs out of that boring spell that you might be in. So be on the lookout for the little bee icon when a buzzworthy tip is going to be discussed today. Also want to say, be sure to stick around till the end for something a little bit special that we have planned as well. And I'll talk about that in just a second here. Before we do jump into our topics and our buzzworthy tips, here are some housekeeping notes to maximize today's experience. So we have live Q&A turned on for this session. So as things come to mind, make sure you submit those questions in the pane and the tab on the right-hand side of your screen in your attendee hub. If you see a question that has been submitted by one of your fellow listeners that you're also interested in, you can choose to upvote those to the top of the list. And we will be answering some of those top voted questions in our live Q&A portion of this presentation once our content is complete. If you can't stay for the live Q&A, at least stay until our trick number 10, where we're going to have a little bit of a contest. And that winner is going to get what we call a speaker kit. And it consists of an HD webcam, ring light, and a tabletop condenser microphone. We also do have chat turned on for this session, so go ahead and start making those connections with fellow listeners while you enjoy today's content. I love to open up the conversation, pop in there where you're joining us from today. I'm actually just outside of Washington, D.C., very close to where Cant's headquarters is located. So tell us where you're from. I'd love to see if we have a little bit of a global presence too. And last bit of housekeeping we have here, the entire session is going to be made available on demand. You'll get an email and then you can log back into this attendee hub for quick reference material. So before I introduce our guest speaker today, I'd like to talk just a little bit about why it's time to take our webinars from boring to buzzworthy. And just for clarity's sake, by buzzworthy, we mean it's likely to create interest and attention, that it's intriguing. You're bringing your content to life and it's exciting. So it's no secret that Zoom fatigue and the webinar fatigue are real. They're a real phenomenon born out of the pandemic. People are getting bored with the same old static webinar experiences, and their expectations have drastically changed. If we want to truly compete for people's time, we've got to create experiences that are really worth showing up for. And it's not just about having that voice talking over a slide presentation anymore. You can see today we're fully live. I do believe, and I believe our guest speaker today is going to come and testify to this too, that if we can begin to treat our webinars more like virtual events, we'll start to increase our attendance, we'll deepen and we'll extend audience engagement, and we'll ultimately see a greater return on the webinars that we produce. Now, that's all to say, you don't need to 10x the time you spend on producing a webinar. But what I am saying is that we start to become a little bit more intentional about the webinars we do produce. From that initial email invitation to the registration process itself, and from the live presentation to that post-show playbook. Start to seek to create those moments that set you apart from the noise and the clutter that your audience has to sort through on a day-to-day basis just to engage with you and your brand. Simply put, aim to be your industry standard when it comes to producing a webinar. Now, to talk more about how we do this, I'd like to welcome to our stage, our virtual stage, a friend of mine, Brock Moreau, Product Marketing Manager for Cant Studio and Cant Webinar Plus. Hey, Brock. It's good to have you here.
Great to be here. How you doing?
All right, Brock, we got 10 tips to get through, so let's just jump right to it.
Okay.
Let's share with us the first way we can create a webinar from boring to buzzworthy.
Yeah, sure thing. Before I jump in, I do want to start off by saying some of the content we're going to share today, it might sound super simple, and it's not my goal to be condescending or to insult anyone's intelligence. But my ask and my challenge to everyone listening is that You don't tune out just because a tip doesn't sound revolutionary, but rather like take the time to reflect on even the simple things, because you may discover that your success is being hindered because of a small oversight. I love being super transparent. Maybe I'm an oversharer, but I'll be super transparent right now. One time I sent out a 150,000 piece mailer for a live event with the wrong date on it. Awful. I'll never forget that moment, but I was so consumed with the design, the look, the feel, the texture of the paper, whatever. And I totally overlooked a simple detail that put my audience on an unpleasant journey that was going to cause frustration and ultimately cause us to lose business. And so don't overlook the small things. So with all of that said, and speaking of audiences, let's jump to our first tip, which is put your audience first. This is one of those simple steps, but look, take a step back and look at your webinars and ask yourself questions like, have I clearly defined my audience? Am I making it easy for people to understand what they're going to gain from coming to my webinar? I know people are super busy and stressed. So have I made the registration process as simple as possible? How many forms am I going to make them fill out to come and listen to something we have to say? Am I truly offering content that's going to make their lives better? Or are my motives selfish? And is my content like a 1-hour sales pitch? You just break this down a little bit. If a webinar is a seminar conducted over the internet, and a seminar is a meeting for giving and discussing information, we need to stop selling so hard out of an insecurity that we may never have that group's attention again. And we need to remember that they joined your webinar because they trust you and your opinion, and they're willing to exchange an hour of their time to learn from you. So if you take that time to give, people will talk about your generosity and the knowledge that you shared. You'll build reciprocity and you'll earn business. So one last thing that you could ask yourself is this, is the format we're using even what our audience is still interested in? Or are they, lovingly tolerating it because, it's just the way it is? So that last one's a loaded question that will take us into tip 2. But before we go there, Alyssa, what are your thoughts on putting the audience first?
Yeah, I love to give my commentary too. But I guess my stance is I always love to acknowledge where your audience is on their journey with your brand as well. Knowing when to position the right offer or the right event even or right webinar to the right audience at the right time is also critical to getting them to attend in the first place, right? So some of those audiences are simply not ready for that level of like commitment or trust or that attention that comes from attending a webinar. And that's okay. I think it's important to acknowledge what types of engagement do you need to warm them up and then get them there and offer that webinar.
Yeah, I love that. And so speaking of all of that, let's jump to tip 2, which is try new formats. So challenge yourself. Is a 1-hour webinar during lunchtime the best? Now, for today, I trust AMA and super grateful for the opportunity to be here. And I totally know and trust that their team has done the work to determine that their audience, you, benefit the most from this format and this time. But for your audience, is 30 minutes better? Is 10 minutes of hyper-specific content with 10 minutes of Q&A better? I worked for a company, in the past. We used to do what we called 10-minute Tuesdays, and we called it, we marketed it as the best part of your lunch break. What we did was super specific, bite-sized training on different features every week. Have you considered smaller moderated discussion groups with a capped attendance, and maybe you email 5 questions a week in advance that you want everyone to think about and respond to so you can speak directly to what your audience is thinking about and have more of a roundtable discussion. Does your audience prefer panels or hearing directly from your CEO or all of the above? Just don't be afraid of diversifying your entire webinar program and don't be afraid to try new things. So what I'm saying here is that knowing your audience and what they need from a webinar is going to get them to show up and to lean in and then to tell others in their field that someone is finally creating engaging content worth watching.
That's so great, Brock. I know our team has really been keen on experimenting with the new formats, even in our own webinar programs. especially within our demand generation group. They're starting to orchestrate these quarterly webinars, and they're around certain themes and certain topics, and really starting to do exactly what you were saying, to that serialized approach. Doing that webinar series, I really think it helps people to start looking forward to your content and your next related session. And it really keeps them on this kind of ongoing engagement, discovery experience with your brand overall. So I love that. All right, Brock, let's keep it going. What's next? Number 3.
All right, tip 3, start with a plan. We all know the quote, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's so true. And your audience, they can feel your level of intentionality and thoughtfulness. And I guarantee they're going to appreciate the fact that you're doing your best not to waste their time. I'm a huge fan of building a run of show or a rundown because it forces you to map the entire presentation. You'll know who's talking when, know who and what are on screen for each segment. You can see your scripts and your talking points. You can determine if you're using lower thirds or graphics or overlays, or if you're bringing in a screen share. You won't have any moments like this. All right, everyone, I'm super pumped for this. Check out this quick video. Hey, Brad, can we get that video? I'm sorry, everyone. Let me Slack him real. You know what? We'll just send it out after. No, that's so painful to watch, and I just cringe doing that. But look, if you build a rundown or a plan, it allows you to deliver a cleaner presentation with a lot less awkward moments. And now some of you may be like, I love the idea of a plan, but how does that make my webinar buzzworthy? And that's totally a fair question. But I'd like to believe that a well-executed presentation with thoughtful moments and content will leave a lasting impression, and people will find themselves relaying what they heard to their peers. However, if that's not the case, at least you won't generate the wrong kind of buzz, like, wow, that was awful. And so just one last thought on that. Just remember, people don't talk about average experiences. You think you go to a restaurant, and if it's just okay, you're not going to be like, yeah. I mean, that's it. It's it. People talk about the bad, and then they talk about the great. So don't be bad. So aim to be great, and people are going to talk about that.
or be bad and just celebrate your badness and try to be, like the best bad webinar. Go viral because it's that terrible, right? No, we're kidding. I agree. Having that well built out plan makes being the presenter even that much easier. Knowing the talking point, when some of those certain elements are going to take place, and so on. I truly have to admit, and honestly, I was rushing to get to this webinar because I had a back-to-back schedule this morning. So I feel really comfortable as a speaker today because I knew we had this plan in place. And it's so important from your speaker point of view, or if you're stressed out or lost, one of your major stakeholders is your speaker. So you don't want that type of uneasiness to come across on the camera, because that obviously translates to your audience as well. And it's not going to feel as great on the receiving end. So, all right, let's keep it moving. What's next?
All right, cool. So once you have the plan, you need to pick the right tool to produce your content. And now there are a lot of, streaming and webinar platforms out there, and you need to find the one that's going to allow you to produce quality, engaging content while also not adding a ton of complexity to your plate. And this varies from, webinar to webinar. So today, for example, based on our plan, we thought Cant Studio would be a great tool for us to use to produce this webinar. We knew we wanted to play some high quality videos and show off some graphics. We knew we wanted lower thirds and graphic overlays like this little lower third right here. And so we knew we wanted all of that. For context, if you don't know Cant Studio, it's Cant's new web-based video production tool that allows you to easily mix and produce broadcast quality video presentations, and it's really easy to use. It's easy enough for me to be a presenter while also producing with all of the elements that I just listed above. And so what's making it so easy, it has this feature called Scenes, and Scenes allowed us to pre-build each segment of this show. And then now that we're live, I'm literally just jumping from segment to segment with I'm clicking the space bar. And so another thing for us today when it came to the selection of our tool was we took into consideration how many presenters were going to be on the screen, so Alyssa and myself, and then what kind of experience we wanted to create for you all today. So This is not a Cvent Studio sales pitch. Honestly, I think we almost used like another platform for today, but again, we had a list of demands, and then we picked the right tool for today's presentation.
Totally agree. I mean, there's so many things to think about when you're producing a webinar. Obviously, I was calling out our presenters. They play a crucial role, but they're also delivering this message, and you've got to think through those planning stages. So, all right, let's switch things up. I know you're very excited to talk about the next two tips, which have to do with branding, your graphics, your videos. I think both of us have lived former lives in the creative industry a little bit, so we get to change things up.
Totally. All right. So this sounds super simple, but I'm shocked at how many people miss this step. But brand your space, brand your environment. Make sure people know where they are and who's talking to them. So like right now, you see an example of that. Like we have the Cvent logo, and then we have the title of today's webinar. We took some extra effort to theme our lower thirds and our tips. But let's say the tool that you picked doesn't have some of those capabilities. Think a little outside of the screen. Get an LED light for your background and change it to your brand's color. Put a branded mug on a shelf in the background.
Where did you get that?
I don't know. I don't know. You like that? I was like,
love it. Surprise.
So or wear like a company shirt with a logo, or use a virtual background. So like, just do something to remind people of your brand and keep it top of mind. And so, now, don't get me wrong, I do love the intimacy and the rawness of what webinars have become. Like we're all at home getting behind the scenes look into each other's lives, like welcome to my home. But go the extra mile and think of what's behind you as your own personal set. And don't forget that you're a representation of your brand and the people who work with you.
I love that so much. Honestly, I painted this office before I thought about Cvent and branding, but the number of blue offices that are in our organizational structure now, I'm like, is there a little bit of like a chicken or the egg situation going on here? But it's such a good reminder that even those small things like a blue office or a mug, or a logo, even in the corner of the screen, they really help tie it all together, and they make your audience really feel like they're attending that well-planned, well thought out, organized event experience.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you said that. You mentioned it during the opening, and I just want to reiterate it for a second. Like webinars are events, like they're experiences. And if we treat them as such, we might see more people show up. I think we're in this dangerous space where webinar is synonymous with, boring presentation. And we wonder why people aren't attending. And I don't want to skip ahead to my favorite point. So I'm just going to pause there. I'm going to get back on track. And I'll just go on to next tip. Okay, tip 6, leverage graphics and videos. This might be another simple one, but I don't want to assume everyone here is proficient in graphic design or video editing. And I wanted to touch on this one because graphics and videos can reinforce your message. They can engage your audience. And then they can also add such a wonderful and much needed break from the talking heads in the middle of your screen. Kind of like this. I have no words.
I love it.
I
call it the Bridgerton puppy video every time for all you Bridgerton fans out there. It cracks me up. So nice.
Yeah, it's pleasant. My heart's full, and that's all anyone's going to remember from today's webinar. So I'm sorry about that.
The hidden tip that we didn't talk about is put a puppy video in every presentation you do.
That's tip 6.1.
6.1, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Okay, so let's get back on track. There's a lot of ways to use graphics and videos to enhance your production value. Use them to introduce products or show a scripted customer story, or graphically, if you want to show off customer quotes, or if you want to celebrate wins or create countdown videos. If you're doing a product demonstration, pre-record your screen share without audio and then play it back and talk over it. I'd actually highly recommend doing that because you can avoid, possible internet issues or wrong clicks, or we've all been there watching someone try to type and talk at the same time. Like that never goes well. But graphics and videos are ways for you to add extra elements to your story. They reinforce your presentation and they act like little hooks to help, pull people back in, kind of like that puppy video. So real quick, I know a lot of you might be thinking, hey, I can't design graphics or edit videos. What do I do? Totally okay. Take a breath. Look, there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of tools that can help you up-level your production. And so before I get to those, I want to pause and say this. Your production level is dependent on your willingness to put forth some effort. So, for today, Steven Studio or any other streaming platform out there, I like to say they're going to give you the house, but you got to furnish it. And it can be done easily. You just have to be willing to put in a little bit of effort. So with that said, I'm going to rapid fire some ways to get it done, and I can even drop these in the chat. So here we go. If you want to build your own graphics but don't want to learn Photoshop, use Canva. If you want some great stock images for free, go to Unsplash. If you have budget and you want to buy some stock images, go to sites like Adobe or Shutterstock. If you need something custom, find a friend, find a freelancer, or in the past, we're not endorsed to say this and whatever, they're not paying us, but like I use Design Pickle. I use them a ton and they were great to work with. We had like this unlimited design plan for real cheap, and we're able to like increase our output by using, a freelance or, an agency. If you have a little bit more money to spend, find a larger agency or make a business case for bringing someone onto your team. For video, actually Canva, in addition to their graphics, like graphic design, they have a lightweight video editor, and which is great. I just learned that. You can also buy pre-made elements from Envato or Storyblocks or Adobe or Shutterstock. So this is a lot, I know, but if you want something custom, hire someone from Fiverr or Upwork, or again, find a freelancer or an agency that you can work with. Like I can attest to all of those things. I've used all of them. I see Amy dropping, Pexels and Pixabay. Yep, great. Unsplash, yep. If you guys, anybody out there has more, like drop them in the chat. Like this is part of that seminar where we're just sharing information. I love this. So what I hope everyone is hearing is that options exist at every level. You just have to put in the effort. And then remember this, if you don't put in the effort, your competitor will. So anyways, Alyssa, you lived a life as a graphic designer. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of, thoughtful design and how it can help make a webinar, a little bit more engaging.
Yeah, I think it's just so important. And I think I'm a little bit biased in giving this, but your visual representation says so much about your company, really more than many think. It sets that stage. It makes that first impression. I give this little kind of example of if you think of yourself browsing through, let's say like grocery store, like going to Target, and maybe you're in the shampoo aisle, you see this hard at work, and it works on your psyche as well. Packaging design, for example, it really aims to get us to buy those products that are based almost exclusively on looks, really. And I know I'm guilty of buying like this cool new razor. It was branded pink, and it was all pink, and it was really cool, and it looked like the razor for the millennials, but it was based solely on the way that was visually presented to me. It was the same as every other chic razor I've ever seen in my entire life. But the same thought process goes into how your overall brand is making an impression on those visitors. And it's done and executed through that extra polish and that professionalism of those graphical elements, all of those video components, every single little entity here that you see on the screen is giving you guys an impression about our brand. So hopefully all of that, the sum of all of those parts is that it's nicely tied together, and it gives you that 360-degree view of our company, of Cvent, not just of Brock and Alyssa, but the people that work there. Just that, the whole impression is really, really important visually as well.
Yeah.
All right, Brock, we're getting so close. What are we on? Number 7. So what's our next tip or trick? Whatever we're calling them. They're tips and tricks.
Tip, trick, whatever, what 7. Actually, we did plan all this, everybody watching. Alyssa, I just want to go off script for 1 second. I'm probably going to kick myself for this, but we were talking so much about branding and graphics. I just want to deconstruct our screen just to show like, hey, this is what happens if you take away these things. So I'm going to take away like our logo. I'm going to take away the title of today's webinar. Gosh, I hope I don't like kick myself for this. I'm going to remove.
No screenshots now, people.
I know. Don't.
The branding's gone.
Oh man. Yeah. So let's go here. So like totally different experience. It's not awful, but like when we go from that to all of this, like it's thoughtful. Photo
moment.
We did it. I was really nervous I was going to botch that. So I'm going to move on before I make any mistakes. So let's go. Tip number 7 is where we're at. Here we go. So interact with your audience. It's another simple one, but it's totally worth stating. Look, don't be afraid to jump into chat, ask questions, conduct polls. I think if done well, all these elements can add an extra layer of engagement to your presentation. And I like to say an engaged audience is a receptive audience. Now, look, I get that interacting while live may seem like a lot to juggle, but remember this. You're helping to break down the 4th wall when you interact. Yeah, see, chat's going great. I won't type and talk at the same time because I referenced that earlier. But so I want to break down the 4th wall really quick or explain it to you. So I lived a past life as an actor and a musician, and we're not talking about that today. But when you're standing on stage and you're looking at your audience, there's typically a physical wall. You have stage right and you have stage left and you have upstage, and then you have your downstage edge. And the downstage edge is where your stage ends and your audience begins. Now, unless your audience is already absolutely in love with you, at the start of every presentation or performance, there's an invisible 4th wall between you and your audience. And it's your job to break that thing down as early as possible. And you can do it through just genuine interactions. So one last thing before I move on, the more, I feel like I don't like talking about this, but the more you put yourself out there and the more you try to interact with your audience, honestly, it's the more you open yourself up to critics and trolls, and it happens. And I have a lot of thoughts that I won't share today. But one thing I want to encourage you with is this: as you put yourself out there, look, at least you're in the ring. Like at least you showed up. And if your motives are pure and you really are just trying to add value to people's lives, like please don't stop. Please don't stop creating. So sorry for the brief tangent. Alyssa, we've done a few webinars together and you've presented on tons more than I have. Like how have you seen chat and Q&A and polls enhance the overall experience, for a webinar attendee?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the B2B circuit, but I have not been on a stage before. So I think you're just as qualified to be answering these questions as well. But my approach when I'm speaking and what I've seen working in this market and on many of the webinars even I've attended is really speaking from an authentic and approachable tone and voice. And it's everything in modern marketing. That's what you see in all of this influencer marketing. It's trying to make that connection and be real. And so it's really important to remember that brands are just made up of people. And these live moments, like what we're having right now, which I have a little bit of a glitchy internet, which I think many of you can relate to today, they're a chance to make those types of connections on a deeper, more personal, more real level. And so it's super important to make yourself as available as this reliable, but also a relatable resource. And you start to break down those walls that keep people from making those real. And here's the buzzword that is actually this one might be 7.1, but it's about trust. It's the trust in those connections with the people who are working behind those brands.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Brock.
I'm going off script. What I love about the webinar space and what's happened with virtual is that, in the past, and I love live events, love arenas, love conferences, all that stuff. You know what though, in those environments, what happens is you have a stage and you have an audience, and there's like the stage is elevated and you don't get to, interact with your audience and vice versa. There's a lot, like there's a separation there. Whereas like with this, like I referenced it earlier, we're all just like humans hanging out, like in our homes on camera. And it humanizes all of this. And so I'm excited for live events to come back because there is like that in-person interaction that it's just great. But this is such a cool way to connect with people and you let your hair down a little bit. So
Totally.
All right, I'm done going off script. I don't trust myself. Okay, tip number 8. And this is probably way too obvious, but give away great content. Giving away great content is going to allow you to position yourself as a resource or a thought leader or an industry expert. And then you get to build reciprocity with your audience. And that's really, it's not manipulative. If done right, it is the rule of obligation, where if someone does something for you, you usually feel a strong need to return the favor, because by returning the favor, you cancel out the first good deed. There's actually a really neat Japanese saying that goes on. It says, nothing is more costly than something given free of charge. And so I do want to balance this out by saying, see you, David. I know you have to jet. Look, don't be manipulative. Create and give away great content, and rest assured that your efforts won't be a total waste. So here's a fun challenge. Just about everything is a Google search away, obviously. So how cool would it be if instead of going to Google first, people came to you or your brand first, because they trust you and they want to hear what you have to say. So my challenge to you is to be your industry's Google. Like be the place people in your industry come to learn and to grow.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Brock, is we're suggesting that people be better and smarter than Google.
I want you to know.
Yeah, so beat Google to it. Be better than Google. That's the takeaway here. I love it.
Give away good stuff.
Yeah. Let's keep moving. Okay. Go to 9. Tip 9.
Number 9. Home stretch. All right. So this one is another simple one, but repurpose your content. You'd be surprised how many times I've seen organizations miss this. So when it comes to your content, look, please repurpose it and get every mile you can out of it. I don't care what it is you do with it, just as long as you don't finish a webinar and go, well, we created all that content. It's fine. It's fine there. It's a totally missed opportunity to expand your reach, increase your domain authority, attract new followers, and so on. So let me run through a few examples of what you can do with the webinar once it's all done. Obviously, post it on your website as on-demand content. You can gate it if you want. I know this is a marketing audience. I'm not going to get into that debate. Anyways, if you're comfortable, throw it on YouTube. It's an easy SEO win, and it's where people are, and it's where they're actively searching. If you want to take it a step further, chop up the footage from your webinar into smaller segments that answer specific questions that are being searched online. If you have the time, take the recording of your webinar and create a highlight version, like a condensed version that's just a few minutes long, and then offer it alongside the full-length version. I think it's thoughtful, and people that are pressed for time are really going to appreciate having the option to view, the main takeaways. Another thing you could do is find your best moments and create mini clips that are 10 to 60 seconds long, and post them on your social channels to promote your on-demand version of that webinar. You can also use those little clips, turn them into GIFs to use them in your emails if you want to recap your webinar content there. A quick side note, please make sure you're save all of the footage from your webinars, because you can use those clips in different ways, and use it as B-roll for future promotions. We live in such a video heavy world now. Just save everything, because you never know when you're going to need it. Another thing you can do is, this is fun, send your webinar to a site that I've used. It's called rev.com, and they'll transcribe it for you. And now you have the copy, and you can use that as a foundation for your blog. So there's other ways to repurpose it, but and it goes without saying. One last thing when it comes to repurposing your content, just to make it simple, determine the exact things you want to do after each webinar, and then create like a little post-webinar playbook. So in the past, I built like a webinar task list template in Asana that had all of the tasks pre-assigned to each of my team members. And each time we had a webinar, we would duplicate the template and get right to work. And it was really nice because we knew nothing was going to fall through the cracks when we were trying to execute on everything after the webinar.
So many more resources, Brock, so helpful. I think you've just kind of done like this tour de force on all of the things that we can be using to kind of inspire our programs. I just like want to take a step back and kind of like hone in on one of the points that you were making there. It almost like kind of slipped in, but it's so important to stress just how much video content, like if you really think about it, video content that your events are now producing. Pre-pandemic, it was, we have these live events, they go away. We might have recorded some of it, maybe for some cross-promotional stuff for the following year, but it wasn't a true video generating opportunity. Now in this virtual space, especially in webinars, because we are so video dependent now, it's just mind-blowing to me how much opportunity we have to extend the life of the content that we're capturing here. I can't imagine some of the PowerPoint heavy presentations we were doing having any, authority in any of those opportunities that you listed out for us, Brock. So I just think it's really interesting to watch and capitalize on this opportunity and the uniqueness of the space that we're in right now.
That's a much better way of saying it than what I said. So well done.
It's probably a much wordier way of saying it, but it's fine. I just have a lot of words to come out here. All right, Brock, let's keep it moving. Next tip.
All right. Okay. So before we get to the last topic, I want everyone to click into the chat area of this webinar. So I'll give you a second, and I don't have the Jeopardy, theme music.
I'll sing it. Dee, 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 dee. Okay, that was good enough. That's all you're getting, people.
That was off script too. Okay, so anyways, at the beginning of the webinar, Alyssa mentioned a giveaway, and we are at that point in the presentation. So Alyssa, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, and Brock, I'm going to have you monitor the chat because I'm Grand Central over here. There's mission control. That's actually what I like to say. But everyone, all right, we're going to do a quick contest. And the winner is going to get, like I mentioned earlier, but just as a reminder, an HD webcam, which I think Brock is using because that's why he always looks so great. His lighting's always great. A ring light, and that condenser microphone. Okay, and we're going to keep this real simple. So in order to win that prize package shipped directly to your home, I'm going to ask a question, and whoever answers that correctly is going to be our winner for today. So we've covered 9 tips so far. What was tip number 7? Brock's looking at the chat. It's very exciting, guys. I'll do more Jeopardy music. Dee, 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 dee.
Oh man!
Come on, people! You know it. I could do a hint.
Yeah, we might need to. Well, let me see. Is this? Yeah.
Anybody taking good notes? Anybody like a stellar student out there?
Ooh. Amy.
Amy?
Yep.
Yay! How fun.
It all just, okay. All right. Cool.
We might just have a little bit of a lag. That might be why it took us a second to get there.
Yep. Hey, cool.
All right, Amy, we're going to reach out to you. We're going to get your mailing address here. I think we actually might have captured that as part of our registration experience today.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was fun.
The real address.
Take it away, Brock. We have one more tip to go.
Okay, yeah. Okay, last tip. Let's jump to it. It is nice to see that everybody was, either has fantastic memories or taking copious notes. So this last tip, and this was a fun way of doing it, but create can't miss live moments. I kind of want to say it again. Just create can't miss live moments. Look, I know some of the perks of pre-recording. But I personally have a lot of conviction around going live for your audience, because I think if they're willing to take the time out of their day, and like seriously, everybody here, thank you for like showing up today. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing. But look, if people are willing to take time out of their day to come and listen, I think they're worth showing up for. plus, when you're live, you can plan and promote certain elements that people have to show up for in order to experience. Like, Amy winning a speaker kit. That's awesome. Anybody watching this on demand doesn't get to like partake in that. And that's a small example of it, but congrats again, Amy. And not that I haven't been so far, but in full transparency, safe space here, I think webinars are typically boring, and I think we can all agree. And I will totally raise my hand and confess to you today. I've only ever attended one webinar at its scheduled time, and it was only because there was an element that was happening live that I didn't want to miss. I think we could do a poll to see how many people have done this before. You've gotten an invite for a webinar, and you're like, man, I would love to learn more about that. I'm not sitting through that. It's probably pre-recorded. You know what? I'm going to sign up. I'm going to let them send me the recording, and then you never watch the recording. Like I do that all the time. I'm like, when did I sign up for? Okay, whatever. But I think that is happening more and more because people are realizing that more and more webinars are just being pre-recorded. And so again, I understand some of the principles behind doing that, but I love going live and being here with you all today. So whether it's a live Q&A with your CEO, a live critique of something submitted by an audience member, a giveaway, access to free content for showing up, like whatever it is, create and promote like those can't miss moments. And I think you might start to see an increase in your webinar attendance.
Yeah, and I just want to stress, like, give yourself some time for trial and error and experimentation too. And as marketers, we're in the interest of A/B testing and trying things out. And you kind of start to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it's really important to note that not everything is an overnight fix. And you aren't necessarily going to go from boring to buzzworthy overnight. But if you can kind of start to commit to that new way of thinking, infuse some of these ideas, the 857 ideas that we gave you guys today, that's going to start to move the needle. Candidly, I'll go off script here. We haven't done that can't miss moment type of thing. So Brock and I went out on a limb to see if any one of you was taking notes today. And there was a moment where it was like, hey, maybe they aren't as engaged as we thought. But that's what's going to help us move the needle and for us to kind of transform the way even we internally think at this event. So with that, I would love to open up the dialogue. I think we do have some questions here. I've got these I've kind of got to load them up here. So let me get to the first one. I'm going to throw this to you, Brock.
I've been
get ready. Okay, this one.
Early today, so like I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, you're ready. Okay. Do you think using the word webinar in our marketing promotions needs updating?
Gosh. Okay, so wow, are we recording this? I mean, obviously we are. Okay,
we're recording.
We're recording. We're live. I think the word people, so like I said earlier, people associate that word with like boring presentation. So I don't think. Gosh, I'm on the fence. I think you could update it, but at the same time, like what are people searching for and what are they looking for? Like, don't get caught up in like, man, this doesn't sound cool anymore. But if your industry still calls a webinar and not like virtual event or like video discussion or like anything like that, then you're gonna miss out on like even like your basic SEO. And so or really connecting people with like, okay, I got it. All right, I've been up since 2:45. I didn't sleep last night, but here it comes. Okay, so when we have to think, like our brains burn calories. And so what happens is the more you make people think, if you confuse them or anything like that, their brain like literally goes into like calorie conservation and shuts down. And so if you want to like change the word webinar into something like fancy or bougie or like cutting edge, but you're like confusing at the same time, like nobody's going to show up. And so yeah, it really it depends on your audience. And I don't like saying it depends on fill in the blank, but that's where I'm at. Alyssa, you gotta
let them know what to expect, right? Yeah. Like, is it live? Are there questions? Will there be raffles? So if you're disrupting your definition of webinar, at least let them know what type of disruption to expect, because I think that will encourage participation, right?
Because like, again, a webinar is like an interactive session of like sharing information. But if you're gonna like do something different, then yeah, that's a great question. Who asked that?
All right. You know what? I don't know. That one didn't have a name. It might have been anonymous, but we do have a question from Jennifer Moreno. What platform are you using to host your webinar today? We can answer that one.
Me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I'll give it to you.
So we are streaming using Cvent Studio, and we are using Cvent's Attendee Hub for the experience that you all are in right now.
All right, next one. Do you recommend working with an AV company to do some of these things?
Ooh, great question. So maybe, depending on like maybe the size of your audience and what your goals are. I come from the live event, so I never want to undermine what like live event professionals do. So if you have the budget and you want to spruce things up, like go for it. If you want to like start experimenting on your own, like with getting a DSLR camera or like updating your your camera, your ring lights, your setting, like there are some things there. Working with an AV company that has like a focus with like storytelling to help you produce your content isn't like a bad idea. So I don't know if you want to produce your webinars, produce them, make them good. But I don't know if an AV company is like the right solution.
I think one of the big themes of in our event tech boom, as I like to call it, over the last year is the consumerization of production technology. So you no longer have to work with an AV provider in order to have an up-leveled experience. Now, if you want to bring it into like, let's call it into the Cadillac, maybe the Porsche territory, maybe the Ferrari territory, you're looking at working with outsourcing with an agency level production team. But Brock mentioned he is producing this in real time. It's just him and I doing this right now. So it's the control is in your hands should you want it.
Yeah, and actually, if I could add one more thing, I'm also thinking about this in the context of like how we're doing webinars right now. But if you're part of an organization that has an office space or a place where you could build out a studio, and you're doing webinars or virtual events regularly, like consult with an AV company, get a cool backdrop, get better cameras, and you can like totally up level your production value if you have the space for it and if you have like the budget for it. Then I think you can have a lot of fun.
Love it. Okay, next question. We have another named submitter, Sergey Stefanian. I believe you might be Armenian, I think. When it comes to webinar series, is it more important to keep consistency between webinars or Is it more important to keep consistency between the webinars to tie in the series, or is it more important to spice up each webinar and make them different? Ooh. Do you want to take that?
I don't
think there's a right or wrong answer to this one. I think that experimentation is great. I think understanding what works for your audience. I really do think knowing your audience is the actual answer to that test. What does your audience need in order to have an engaging webinar? I do think that there's something to be said for a serialized approach to kind of get an individual on the line and then feed out more content, or not to try to take off more than you can chew in a one session experience, that you can kind of go deeper on some topics. So I think that they almost have two different motivations or objectives associated to the two, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that too, Brock.
Yeah, I think diversifying your content and the way that you do things is fun. And like Alyssa said, experiment. Like take, okay, so for example, January is coming up and everybody's on like the like New Year's resolutions, and this is what we're gonna do. Like, does your brand have like something that you could walk people through that's like the whole new year, new you type thing, and do a 4-week webinar series on that, like experiment with it. You could try like bite-sized, smaller format type like webinars or trainings. It goes back to what do you call it? I'm gonna be thinking about that all day. I'm sorry. So yeah, don't be afraid to like experiment, but also like get some consistency in there. Like, are you doing a quarterly product update? Are you doing something that is more like industry training on the first Monday of every month? Like, there are a lot of ways to do that. So be consistent. And I think that would be like my biggest piece of advice. Like, be consistent in your content creation. Like, don't create 3 great webinars and then go dark for a year. Yeah, these are great.
I love this next question. This one might be my favorite, partly because I speak a lot. Okay, so how do you coach presenters who are senior executives at your company to sound real and authentic if they come off too scripted? I have some answers to this.
Okay, you go.
I love to use examples to demonstrate success. So if they're watching a couple of different virtual events, give them one that you expect them to react to more positively, that's likely going to be more authentic, and one that's going to feel more scripted. And give them those examples to help demonstrate the value of authentic speaking.
Yeah.
My second pointer is remove the scripts. Make them have something to say that is not scripted and see what happens there. I do think that there's a tendency to rely on the Word document or a script or a reel or whatever that is. And just having those training wheels on that starts to sound a little bit stiff and stodgy. So see what happens if you don't have a script. See what happens if you just open up a room for chat. And I think that the connections will be obvious then.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like that is interesting, especially if you're dealing with not dealing with in a bad way, but if you have like leaders over you that are presenting. I would hope that it's a safe enough environment where you can give constructive, feedback. Do a rehearsal, pre-record it, and let them watch it, because sometimes I hope people are self-aware enough to where you look back at something and go, "Oh, I can get better." Like I look at webinars I've done and I'm like, I talk out of the side of my mouth, and now everybody's going to see that. I'm just going to like finish like this. Or if you have budget, like bring in like a speech coach or communications expert, somebody to help like work with them, because chances are like executive level people are constantly communicating with people, and it serves them well to learn how to communicate effectively and succinctly and like command a room and command attention. So work with a coach, give feedback, and like I would even set up like retros so that after your webinar, if you can sneak in the rehearsal, great. But after the webinar, like try and schedule 15 minutes and be like, hey, here's feedback that we got from a survey. Here's some thoughts that I have. Let's like, all right, we'll go to the next one. Do it lovingly.
Yeah, they're executives at the end of the day, right? Like they should have opinions and feelings too, but proof is in the pudding, right? So if the data is supporting that there's more engagement, when there's more authenticity or more off the cuff or more relatability, I saw, sorry, not to like continue on this, but I just remember in the virtual space too, many of the opening segments and the executive level keynotes that would take place, the executives were like putting socks on and their kids were running in the background. And there was something like very relatable, even at the Jeff Bezos level, right? Like we're starting to see the real behind some of these monoliths in society. And so I think there's a change in modern marketing that's taking place where we all just need to be a little bit more approachable. Okay. I did want to call out that we are working on a blog that will encompass all of the 10 tricks that will be on cvent.com. You'll be able to search and look for that right there. So if you do want this as reference material, we don't have it quite up yet, but it should be there in the next couple of days because I think there's been a lot of chat there. So I'm going to go right up to the hour because I think we're just having a really great discussion and we still do have some questions to answer. So the next one, Brock, how do you get attendees to fill out a survey at the end of a webinar? We only get about 20%. Ooh, the love-hate relationships with survey response rates. I will say CVent, and this is based off of our, budgeting and also just our ability in our space. We're in, obviously technology, so we don't have as many restrictions on things like this, but we are big into the gifting. We do offer $5 gift card, e-cards for filling out our surveys. Same will go for today. So if you have yet to fill in our survey, go ahead and click the right side of your screen and fill in the survey. Help Brock and I get better.
Yeah.
And there's coffee involved, right? Another freebie, another little thing to give away. But anything to add there, Brock?
No, you hit the nail on the head. And so what is tough, because I've been a part of like customer marketing initiatives, and I think it's really great, like incentivizing people to give feedback. Wonderful thing. The one thing you do have to sift through is like the quick clickers that are like, yeah, it was great, or bad. And so the people that are in that 20%, that if you're not incentivizing, like at least they're giving you real, honest, actionable like data that you can take and then improve upon. And so there's two sides to that coin. Experiment with it. Like if you, I'll stop talking. If you like incentivize and you're like, hey, $50 for a survey, like you might see like some vanity metrics pop up into your data, and you're like, man, we're crushing webinars. But no, you're buying that success, and it's not converting. So I'm done.
Oh no. Okay, I love this next question. It's really good. It's from Glenn Anderson.
All right.
How can you create interaction with the chat without it ending up being distracting? I struggle with using the chat during my presentation. I find it breaks the flow with dead air while I'm checking the chat.
Ooh, that's a great one, because if you're presenting by yourself, that does get tricky. It goes back to that whole like somebody trying to talk and type at the same time. Like it just doesn't work. Like if I was trying to like read over here what Stephanie was saying, like that does get awkward. And so I totally understand. Try going live with like a co-host or a moderator or somebody that can like help carry the weight of the webinar with you, so you can interact, or just be comfortable and embrace it and go, hey guys, I'm gonna check the chat real quick, like see what's going on, and like have a couple of go-to lines, or play some background music and say, hey, I want to, just look over here real quick to see what you all are saying. So,
and I hope today gave you a little bit of a taste for that there was almost a kind of an exemplary model of how, one can carry conversation over here while the other one, I'm getting some messages on the side here. But also being okay with breaking that fourth wall. I think many of us kind of fear that. We feel a little bit like we're seen, or we have to it's hard to be unguarded when we're presenting, and it's okay to kind of make mistakes and fumble through it and sing Jeopardy songs in the middle, that's okay. You almost have to give yourself permission to have a little bit of that dead space too. But I like to plan for the moments of interactivity where I know like this is something that's likely going to generate some chatter, or I'd like to generate some chatter, so that you, like Brock said, I don't remember what tip it was, 2 or 3, Brock, where we start with a plan, right? So if you plan for some moments of interactivity, I think you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, and then you'll ease into that, and it will feel more natural for you.
I can say really quick, who asked that question?
Oh Lord, Glenn. Okay, Glenn,
right. Hey, thank you for being self-aware enough to know that there's awkward moments going on, because a lot of people just go live and they're just awkward, and it is not good. So thank you for wanting to like enhance those moments. So kudos.
Okay, our last question of the day. We have 1 minute left. Let's see if we can get through it. From Sven. Any tips for honing in on novel topics for a webinar? It's all too easy for topics to sound like thinly veiled sales pitches.
Melissa, do you want to go first?
No, I'm making you go first. That's a great question.
Okay. Ask it one more time.
My stance on this is find the space where you're a thought leader. Don't try to sell your products. This shouldn't be the space where you're selling. This should be the space where you're edutaining. So you are providing some entertainment value. You're also educating them and giving them something that they didn't know. Brock gave away a myriad of things that were not Cvent related resources today. And I hope that can be seen as a chance for you to see Cvent as somebody that's not just selling Cvent all the time, right? Like, again, we're people who need resources as well. And that establishes the trust and the rapport, so that maybe at some point when you are ready to purchase some product with Cvent or some solutions with Cvent, we have that trust, we have that relatability, we have that reliability with you. And that to me is, don't mask it. Be something different than a sales pitch.
Yeah, well said, Alyssa. Yeah, don't try to like sell people, especially if they think they're just showing up for like free content. It does go back to just give, build reciprocity, position yourself as that thought leader. Like talk about things that your industry really cares about, and then it goes back to that whole like just be your industry's Google. Like there are a couple people that I follow for marketing that like if you can Google stuff about marketing and there's so much information out there, and I found a few people that I really like and I've latched onto. So like be that for others, like be consistent. Don't be like sneaky or manipulative. Like, hey, this is a webinar and we're going to teach you this, and then just teach that. I'm not saying don't promote your products, don't promote your brand, but like find the right, like be tactful about when you are saying, hey, we did all this and this is what we used. So, but that's not the point. So just like do what you would want somebody to do to you. Like if you show up for something and somebody like is bait and switch, like I'm out. So like
on that note, that's a perfect way. Do unto others as you would have done to yourself, right? That's the perfect closing words for this webinar. All right, Brock, thank you so much. Thanks again to AMA for having us today. It's an amazing opportunity for us to share some content on our platform, no less. We already said it, but make sure to fill in that survey. Again, it's on the right-hand side of your screen. Brock and I can only get better. You know, we're still learning, we're still trying, we're experimenting in real time too. So we would love your input on your webinar experience today. And we look forward to seeing you on another one of our webinars, whether that's with AMA or on cvent.com. So make sure that you check this out on demand as well. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for coming. See ya.